We're gonna start over with that.
Yeah, that was kind of quiet.
Welcome to the No Budget Filmmaking Podcast, a podcast about the art of making films, no matter how small the budget. And now, here are your hosts, Alex Dark and Trevor L. Nelson.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. This is episode 54 of the No Budget Filmmaking Podcast. I'm Alex Dark.
And I am Trevor L. Nelson. And today we're going to talk about the mistakes to avoid making a film that looks cheap. Everyone wants to, do their indie film, but a lot of times you can spot if it's indie or if it's, a lot of people want to do it for no budget, and sometimes it tells.
Yeah.
Sometimes
So
you can tell
how to avoid making it seem like a no budget film.
Yes.
When in fact you want it to seem like a high budget film, even though you didn't spend that much money.
We've been watching some trailers on some independent low budgets, and we've seen some shorts, and we've seen some hits and misses. So we thought we'd share it with you guys all, so you don't make the same mistakes. But first, Alex, It is balls hot in Los Angeles and Monrovia. What are you drinking?
Oh my gosh, yes it is. I am drinking a Stella in a can.
Artois?
In a can. As we discussed earlier, and I forgot when I bought these, 11.2 fluid ounces. Stella. What are you doing? Where's that 0.8?
It's one thing to make a can like a Coors Light, which doesn't fit in normal can dispensers and mini fridges, but then to not even give a full 12 ounces, you're an asshole, Stella.
Yeah, what's up with that? You had to make that custom can just to save 0.8 ounces.
Yeah. Maybe that's what they're doing. They're charging more and making it up for the can price with the price. I'm stuck with the Miller Lite. It's a nice, cool, refreshing beverage in my Hive lighting koozie. Thank you again, Hive. Yes.
Now my Stella cans don't fit in my Hive koozie.
I know. Neither do Coors Light. It's been hot here.
It's true.
It's partially wildfires. There's wildfires all over California, so much so that Alex is on the cusp of having to evacuate his home.
That's true. I'm on evacuation notice right now. Warning. Evacuation warning.
Yep.
How'd
that warning come down? Text message?
How'd it come down? Well, first my mom called me.
Of course.
No, not really.
That'd be great.
I was just reading about it. It's very close. Like I can see it with my own two eyes. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I just started noticing all the news. And I also have I do have a text alert thing, but it hasn't texted me yet saying that I need to do anything. It was just because actually technically I'm not in the evacuation zone.
Okay.
So it's possible that I wouldn't even need to evacuate even if there were crispy houses around me.
Nice.
Yeah.
So the question is,
it's just me hanging out.
You get 10 minutes to evacuate. What are you grabbing?
Probably s'mores stuff. I don't know.
I
guess the snoo. The snoo.
Yeah, you better grab that damn snoo. I think that thing's more expensive than your damn computer. So it's been hot here. It was like 115 for a while. It's been, as the French like to say, balls to the wall hot.
Yes,
hot.
It has been. Although, weirdly enough, and this is just a theory, I'm no meteorologist or anything. I don't know anything about meteors. I think
your name's not Alex Rainclouds.
No, it's not.
That'd be good.
I believe the smoke from the fire is making it cooler here because it was supposed to be probably at least 5 degrees warmer, if not more. But I think the sun is going through a thick ND layer before it hits me.
Look at you.
Has been, I don't know. I don't want to say it's been nice, but has been.
Look at you. Well, ooh, tread lightly. Not that anybody whose house is burned up is listening to this podcast right now because they have more important things to worry about. But look at you bringing it back to film. But I think you're right. I heard that at least in downtown, it was 20 degrees cooler on Monday because of the smoke.
Wow, 20 degrees.
And we had we had ash on patios. And if anyone knows LA, downtown is nowhere near the mountains enough to make you think you'd see ash, but it's everywhere.
I know. I woke up, walked outside and saw my cars covered in ash, and I thought my house was on fire because it was so thick and big. that I was like, there's no way that came from that fire away over there. But,
you're like, damn, my pregnant wife must be smoking again. Stress is getting to her. She's ashing on my car.
I know. Get out of here.
So what else is new? Our log line generator that we released for freezies, everyone's favorite phrase if you're no budget, got written up in No Film School.
Yeah.
So we got
Thanks,
no film press school. For that. Thanks, nofilmschool.com. So we got some press for that. So make sure you go on to filmmakingcentral.com to check it out and use it and hopefully sell your scripts.
Yes, indeed. And then next, Trevor, your favorite game, everyone's favorite game, especially Funbot.
Quarantine game. Yep.
Random question pulled on the spot.
From where?
From a deck of questions.
Oh, okay.
Ready?
Yep. Go.
Here we go. Neither of us have seen this question, so that's why it's so interesting for everyone involved.
Yes. I'm scared.
Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
What is something you like that most people don't?
Man.
Star Wars, I guess, is one of them for you.
Yeah, nobody likes Star Wars. That would be for you if what's one thing you hate that other people like. Man, that's a good one. I got to think of so.
I can think of one for you. I can't think of one for me.
You can think of one for me? What is that?
Yeah, Lutefisk.
Oh, holy shit. I was actually just going to talk about that. Nice. Yeah. Nice. I was going to preface it by saying my fat ass, of course, is going to turn to food. But you beat me to it. Holy shit. Way to go. Yeah, we should just be on the Newlywed Game and answer the questions for each other. Yeah, I like Lutefisk. My grandfather was Swedish, so we'd have Lutefisk around Christmas. I like it. Everyone else hates it. It's like a jellyfish that has been cured in lye. So
sounds delicious.
Yeah, people don't like it. I do. A little white sauce on it, not bad. I like it. So try it sometime. Let's see if I can think of something that you like that nobody else likes.
Yeah. Yeah. What would that be, Trevor?
Brie. No. Now that I heard that she listens to our podcast, I'm going to get in trouble for that one.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, I am. Sorry, Brie. We all love you. My wife. That's what you like that nobody else does. Damn, we're just hitting the wives today.
Wow, you're really going for it today.
I would say.
Couch time.
Yeah. If your house wasn't on fire, I'd be sleeping there tonight. I would say vignettes, which you love.
That's true. I do love vignettes. That is true. I think other people like vignettes too.
I don't know if they like them to the level that you do, though.
I've tried to tone it down with I put them in everything still, but way less.
It's like you just got your first grade project to make a pinhole camera, and you're like, "Oh my god, this vignette is amazing."
It does make things look cool and old timey, I will say.
Yeah. I'm trying to. No, everyone likes gin. You love gin. I hate gin.
I do like gin.
What do you like that other people don't?
Man, it's tough. I was trying to go back to like movies, like a movie that I really like that nobody else does, but I can't think. I mean, I just like all movies. That's the thing.
I know. Yeah. I would say again, hate that everyone else loves the red camera. I don't know. I would say vignettes. I don't know if people hate them.
Yeah. Hate what?
Vignettes.
Yeah, it probably is that. Yeah. I think people probably do hate that. I also love lens flares, and I think people
J.J. Abrams brought everyone
sick of those too.
I mean, J.J. Abrams brought that to the forefront, so it's obviously not just you.
Yeah. I also like puppy videos.
Everyone hates puppy videos.
I know, everyone hates those, but I like them.
I know. I don't know why there's so many of them on the internet, because everyone hates them.
Yeah.
What kind of food do you like? That I mean, you like all food. I'm trying to think if there's anything you like that people hate.
I mean, it's one of those things, like lutefisk is so specific.
Yeah. You talked about that what is it, Jello salad that your grandma makes or somebody in South Dakota makes with mayonnaise in it?
Oh yeah, I've never actually had that.
Do you like that?
That was a pre-me, not South Dakota family treat. Lime Jello with corn in it and mayonnaise on top. Yeah, I've never had that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
I would say for me, what's probably coming to light here is that I hate more things that other people like, rather than like more things that other people hate.
Yeah. You're not. You just are an angry man. That's what it is. Just an angry, grumpy old man that yells at things.
That's true.
I think yes, I would say that you definitely hate things that people like more than you like things that people hate.
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
Cool.
So
this was a very informative podcast. All right, that'll do it for this episode.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
This one was for you, Funbot.
Suck it, Funbot. Oh man, we're gonna have to meet Funbot someday and just ask him why he hates us so much.
I know, but won't that be weird when we meet like a robot for the first time, like an online troll bot?
Yeah, that's just. We should go look at all other podcasts and you just see Funbots on all of them saying, "I hate this. I hate this."
Yeah, these guys are drunk.
These guys are. It's like the Mothers Against Drunk Driving podcast. These people are drunk.
I was listening for 11 minutes and they hadn't gotten to the topic yet.
Well, if you know 11 minutes, scrub forward a little bit. Scrub 15 minutes.
I know.
Yeah. But on to the main topic. So Alex and I have been watching some trailers lately for some low budget stuff, some shorts of some no to low budget stuff, and also just peruse, connecting with filmmakers. A lot of these like filmmaking groups are all about people promoting their own projects, which is fine. It's all, promotion is, there's nothing wrong with it, but we've noticed a lot of things that people do where they're like, "Hey, check out my project. This is awesome. Tell me what you think." And these are the things that me and Alex always go back to with each other back and forth about, "Oh man, they got to do this, got to do that. This looks bad." For me, right off the bat, like before I even get to the trailer of the project, it's the production company card or logo. People do like, think of like Bad Robot, how they have that little robot running through the field and all that. Like that's the production company card and logo. And there are some really bad ones out there. And you know what? I get it. It's expensive to hire a graphic designer to design it. But that to me, immediately when I see that, I'm like, okay, this is like, if that is one thing you should spend money on, it's because you're going to use that card in front of every movie that you do. Granted, right. You can make it better later. Bad Robot started out with just an image and then they created the animation and all that. Lionsgate had a shitty one and then all of a sudden they had that cool 3D going through the gate. But like, at least do one that looks like, hire a graphic artist to do a good one.
Here's my thought. Like at the very least, get a designer to design you like a good logo, period, right? Like, because it all starts with like a good logo. If you have a good logo, you can just like fade it on and off, and that's fine. It doesn't
need to be animated.
But if you have like a crappy logo already, or just like one that looks amateur or like clip arty or whatever, then MS Painty, then you're going to, you can't really do much to make it better anyway. So start off with a good logo, fade it on, fade it off, just on.
Doesn't
black.
need to be animated. Yeah, you're good. Because that's the first thing that people are going to see a lot before trailers or before your movie. And you know what? It's a petty ass industry, and a lot of people, including me, will just discount your movie right off the bat if they see something that's really, really hand drawn kind of thing.
It's true. I've literally, we have Shudder, the horror subscription service, and some of those are lower budget and indie horror movies, which is cool. But there was definitely a time where I was setting out to watch one, and I forget what movie it was, but the logo came up, and it was so bad that my initial reaction was like, "Oh no, have I made a mistake in choosing this movie?" Because it does. Movie. It is the very first impression. Yeah. Even though it seems stupid because it's just like your company logo, but it is the first thing that people see. So why not make it good?
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, it's going to be used. If you come up with a good one, you'll use it for a long time. I mean, you're going to use it for a bunch of shorts, a bunch of features, a bunch of trailers. So why not take the time or just, do a gig and take some of that money if you can front it in these crazy times and hire somebody to make a really good logo, because it's going to be with you for a while until you get more money to, if you animate it or make a better one. So that to me, first thing they see, if it's a bad logo graphic, it's a turn off and it makes it look kind of like cheaply made.
I agree. The next one for me is lighting. It's just hard to get past it if there's really bad lighting. And I
want to preface this by saying that, like, I know we're the No Budget Filmmaking podcast, and so don't think that when we say bad lighting, it's like they're using cheap equipment. Like, you can get good results from cheap equipment. It's not like we're expecting you to have a 12K RE light to flood the windows, and if you don't, it's going to look cheap. No, it's just what you do with the equipment that you have.
Right, and I think it comes down to it's kind of like lighting and camera work together as one idea, because you have sort of like this idea of the light falling off, and how whether you have just like all hard light and like or unmotivated light, hard light when it should be soft, or soft light when it should be hard, and not having clipping, a lot of clipping where the hot spots are just like overexposed completely, and there's no sort of like gradient fall off, because you don't have like a lot of dynamic range, or maybe you've shot in Rec 709 and there's just no, and you've tried to you've overexposed it and you're trying to like fix it in post and it's just not working, and so you have these kind of like harsh banding, or like just a lack of color data and gradients and all that kind of stuff.
And a thing that I definitely notice is that like they will overexpose the whole room, or they'll light the whole room, and then they'll blast the actors with light, and then you get this really bright background that still has shadows falling on it. It's like, man, like
totally, like that. I mean,
come on.
Yeah, I mean, an overlit background is kind of like number one sign, because to me it's a sign of you don't have really control over the location, because what you would want to do is shut off all the lights, or have control over the lights that are in there, and maybe like switch out tubes for color correct tubes and all that kind of stuff, if you have overhead and fluorescent lighting or whatever. But basically, if you have just like an entirely lit room that doesn't have any sort of like texture or anything, it's just like a flatly lit room, it just means that you didn't have any control over it, or you just didn't take the time to do it because, I don't know, maybe you didn't know or whatever. But that also leads to another thing that is also like semi-camera, semi-lighting, is like a lack of depth.
Yeah.
Because I think the same thing with having just a flat, overly lit background. If you don't create depth between your characters in the background, whether it's actual depth, and depth of field and all that kind of stuff, or with shadow and light, that is also kind of a telltale sign of an amateur production, in my opinion.
And don't think you have to do like film noir where it's like super dark in the background and super light in the foreground. But I'm just like looking around my place right now, and I have an overhead light and like another light, and it's there's pockets of dark. Like my kegerator is in the dark. You can still see it, but it's not lit. Like people seem to think that they need all the details to be lit so that you can see everything, and it's definitely not the case. You just got to take a little more time to make sure you're lighting correctly. And yes, it's hard to do that when you have no budget and you're on a crunch for time, but it's something that will help.
Totally. And I also think that it comes down to the point that filmmaking is about highlighting the things that you want highlighted in the frame, like showing the audience what you want to show them. And oftentimes it shouldn't be everything. Yeah. Right. Because that's like a surefire way to get people distracted and looking at things that they're not supposed to be looking at, and then wondering, oh yeah, what was I supposed to be? What are they doing there?
Unless it's a plot point, don't bring focus to it. Like, it doesn't matter what's in their bar. Behind them, unless they're going to kill somebody with that thing later, or bash somebody over the head with the bottle.
And so even in spaces where traditionally you think it's just flatly lit and everything's lit, like an office, right? You just think that overhead lighting is lighting everything. And even if that's true, you would want to make the character stand out from that background. So whether that means lighting them in such a way where they are what you're exposing for and the background is down like a couple stops, even though it's even.
Yeah.
It's like down so that the actors stand out a little bit, or whether it's with production design, which is another thing that we're going to talk about. But,
you
know, just creating like some kind of separation between your characters in the background. That's huge. But going back to what you said about the shadows, to me, if I see multiple shadows, it really bothers me.
Yeah. And what we're talking about is like a character has a shadow over their right shoulder of their silhouette and over their left shoulder at the same time, which, you know, they have two lights pointing at them and both are blasting enough that you can see the shadows, both shadows.
Yeah. And I think in most scenarios, that's not what would happen.
No.
And if it was, you'd want to kind of establish ahead of time what it is that's doing that for, you know, because like if you're just in a room and there's a chandelier over your head or whatever, like one light source, and then all of a sudden there appears to be 2 or 3 shadows on the wall that are actually from your film lights, it's kind of a no in my mind.
Yeah. And as we talked about, I think in the last podcast or the one before that, it's like there's got to be motivation for what you're doing, and so there has to be a motivation for you to have 2 shadows. Because if you don't have 2 shadows, if you don't have the motivation, then it just looks like lazy filmmaking. But if you can explain why there's 2 shadows, maybe there's multiple lights or there's 2 windows coming in, and like, you know, if you show a motivation, it makes sense and it doesn't look lazy. It's just that a lot of people are just doing it to get the shot off as quickly as possible, and it doesn't look good.
Yeah, and then going on with lighting a little bit more, underexposure, which I can frankly say that I had a lot of experience with early on, because to me, underexposure made it, and using natural light and underexposing it kind of made it seem grittier or whatever, back in the old mini DV days, or even like the early 5D.
Dating yourself.
Yeah. But there's a way to create, like, just being underexposed is not dramatic, right? It's just poorly lit at the end of the day. Because you want the audience to be able to see what they're supposed to see, and there's nothing worse than having a dramatic moment happening and you're like squinting at the TV trying to figure out what's going on because it's all dark.
And again, like, don't think that means you have to spend a lot on lights. Cameras these days are relatively a lot cheaper than they used to be and handle low light much better. So don't think that we're like, oh, you got to spend on a whole 5-ton grip and lighting, G&E package. No, you just got to be able to, you know, smartly use the lights you have, bounce it, use the camera that has really good low lighting if you can't get the lights you want. There's ways around it that you don't have to spend a ton of dough.
Yeah, and I think having the light come from the opposite side of the whatever you're shooting, so off camera, basically, the off camera side is kind of, you know, it's not a rule, but in general, especially if you're doing dark stuff, just having like a little backlight to sort of create an edge around whatever it is, so you can at least separate. Again, it's about separating things and like having people understand what things are. If you have just like total darkness and everything kind of like blends into together and you just have no sort of detail in what's going on, put a backlight behind whatever the object is, whether it's a person or a prop, and create a little bit of separation so at least you can see what you're supposed to be looking at.
And don't be afraid. It's not going to make your like desirable low lit scene look like it's overlit or overexposed or like weird lighting. It if it's not there, it's more noticeable than if it is there.
Yes. Agreed.
Yep. And then there's the overexposure when people get a lot of lights and they just like, you know, this kind of comes to our like
just a lot of front lighting. Is what happens.
Front lighting, the double shadows is from overlighting because you have 2 lights on your main subject. This is what I see a lot of, where they're afraid that things are not going to be seen that they want you to see, and so they just blow blow out the whole scene to make sure you see everything. And like I said, the eyes are good at picking up on stuff if you want them to see it. They don't have to be blown out. They can pick up on good detail in the low light.
Yeah. And I also, when I was first starting with I remember taking the cinematography class in college, and they taught 3-point lighting or whatever. And so I thought 3-point lighting was the deal, right? Like that's what you did all the time. And it's just not true. That you just don't, sometimes it's 1-point lighting.
Yeah.
And that's just it. But that caused me to overlight so much. Like this concept that it's supposed to be 3-point lighting. You're supposed to have like a key light and a fill light and a backlight, and then maybe sometimes a background light, and like all these things, like these core concepts that are great to know. Like it's good to know those, but you kind of have to have the context to know that how it actually works in reality when it comes to narrative. A lot of times 3-point lighting is what you use, and you dial it in such a way, but it doesn't have to be so. And a lot of times it doesn't look best because it is very sort of cosmetic, I guess, or there's it's not natural looking a lot of times because most of the time people aren't lit by 3 lights.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Totally. So I mean, again, it goes back to the idea of like you got to know the rules before you break them. So the basic lighting is 3-point lighting, but once you get that down, it's like break away from it and have some fun.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that sometimes multiple points come from one light. So like the key light can also create a backlight if it's bouncing off of something behind you or whatever. So like, or a key light can wrap around a person enough to where they don't need a fill per se because you want that contrast ratio between the key side and the shadow side of their face.
Yeah, because maybe there is a chandelier that's all the way at the other side of the room, so that the strong light's coming from the right side of the camera left, but the right side of the subject. So
right. Or maybe there's a practical like this guy.
Yeah.
That are hitting me on. Well, people can't see that on the podcast, but you'll get what I'm saying. There's practicals sometimes.
Then watch the video, guys, if you want to know
the effect that you want. But then also moving into another realm of camera work.
Oh yeah. We talked about this kind of like the trends in filmmaking. I feel that this might be part of the what we talked about in the last podcast, where people are doing things based on what's cool in the major motion pictures. But
I think so. But one thing that really it bothers me every single time, and I guarantee I've talked about this in other podcasts too, other episodes, because it really does bother me.
Maybe bakes your beans?
DSLRs. It really does bake my beans. It does.
Okay. All right.
Bushes.
Yeah.
Baked beans.
Roll that beautiful bean footage. Okay. Continue.
DSLRs.
Funbot is going to kill us.
Are tiny.
Yeah.
And they're super light. And they don't have the same feeling as a real movie camera. Because movie cameras have weight. And they move very slowly and smoothly and methodically, and when you have such a lightweight little camera that is tiny, it doesn't take a lot for you to sort of bump it, and like when you're moving, even with a shoulder rig or whatever, it has this very sort of abrupt, like I'm a tiny camera movement to it that isn't the same as if you had a giant camera on your shoulder, Yeah. Like you can move things much tighter on like the nodal point of the camera because the camera's so small versus having a big camera that's going all the way over your shoulder. It just moves differently. End of rant. But
with DSLRs, you could do playback. So you should play back before you move on to the next scene, because another take isn't going to be the end of the world. It's not going to slow you down that much. But if you have the only good take you have is a shaky camera, that's going to stick out and be like, hell no.
Definitely. And another part of that too, the same issue in my mind, is that these lens mounts that were made for still cameras weren't really made for video. And so they're not they don't have that like positive lock, like the PL mount, positive lock mount, like has. It's
Mm-hmm.
like this very tight sort of mount onto the camera. It's not going anywhere. But these Canon, Sony mounts,
E-mounts.
they have, especially if you're using an adapter, like if you have a Micro Four Thirds mount and you're adapting to a Canon or something, there's a little play in the lens. And so when you go to do focus or just touch the lens or whatever, you get this like knock, and it just bumps and it kind of like jolts a tiny bit even. And it just, to me, it's like a dead giveaway that it's not, you know, like a professional camera system from that, even just movement right there.
Now, I would say that if you have no other option and you're so pressed for time, there's stabilizers in post. It won't fix everything, but it will help. Especially, I'd rather see somebody use a stabilizer, like a warp stabilizer in Premiere, than just go through with a scene that has a camera knock. It's not great. And there's ways you could do it in post if you just don't have the time. You don't have the time to take another shot, do another take, or you don't have the money to get a good camera with lenses, which not everybody has, but you could do some things in post. Which makes it even more infuriating when it's still there, because it looks like people are lazy or cheap. And you know, you may be cheap out of your power. You have to be cheap because of how much money you have behind it, but it's also lazy just to leave it there and not do anything about it, either take a new take or fix it in post, which it's pretty easy to fix it in post these days. And if I see that, and we've seen it in some higher budget shorts, it's boggles my mind why it's still there.
I know. And also there are things you can do, you know, just again, okay. So yes, DSLRs are small, which is handy and convenient in a lot of ways. And doing something to make it seem bigger seems counterintuitive, because it goes against the reason you bought the thing in the first place, right? Because you want this small thing that lets you just run around and do whatever you want, and like take it to weird locations where you shouldn't really have a camera, and like all these different things. But doing things like having a shoulder mount and putting a sandbag on your shoulder to really like make sure it's not moving off your shoulder and floating away, or like doing some strange movements. Or I know that they even make some camera mounts, some shoulder rigs that mimic the size and shape of a cinema camera or like a broadcast, you know, just like over the shoulder, like Alexa style camera. I think one was made out of wood even. It was called like Ergo Cine or something.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just this sort of like wooden camera shaped thing that you stuck your DSLR on, and you could use, you know, the rosette mounts to have handles come off it, and had rods, so you could mount accessories and stuff. But it just gave it this feeling of the size and weight of a normal cinema camera, which makes for easier operating when you're doing that type of cinematic stuff.
Yep. Also, focus. Camera. We're talking about camera work. Focus in and out of focus. Again, unmotivated. Like it looks like an accident. You know, I know that it's hard to get a camera operator in there or somebody to pull focus on things, but work around that. Don't just, you know, people moving in closer and away from the camera and getting in and out of focus. No bueno.
Well, it also kind of ties into lighting, right? Because people shoot wide open on these things to try to like get as much light in as possible. But what they don't account for is that creates such critical focus. The focal plane is so slim that it's literally, you know, like a millimeter on someone's eye, and if they just bobble slightly, they're going in and out of focus. And
if they act, then they're screwed.
Exactly. And so what you would normally want to do is not shoot wide open, you know.
Yeah.
Get more lights in there so you can stop down and create a wider focal plane, so that there's a little bit more room for actors to do their thing and operators to do their thing, so they don't have to worry so much about sticking focus every time.
And actors will definitely thank you if you don't have to tell them to stay in a specific spot that's so specific it's impossible to stay in.
Yes, I've been on those shoots, and it's brutal. It is frustrating. It's brutal for everyone.
Yep.
So you know, there are times where you have to do it. I get it.
Yep.
But don't do it for the whole movie, and don't do it over and over and over again. Like maybe one time if you have to. I get it.
Yep.
But...
Yep. And what else we got in camera work?
Well, we talked about the death, but I also there's something about composition and camera angles and stuff. I think for a lot of us who are familiar with photography, who have done photography, or who have been shooting a lot, the idea of composition comes pretty easy, and you get it, and you can see good composition in movies and say, oh yeah, I like that, and then kind of dissect why you like it and recreate it. But for people that aren't familiar, I think it's a lack of composition is a dead giveaway. That a movie is, it just appears cheap and unprofessional when
and quickly made.
Yeah. And even when it comes to sort of like the basics of filmmaking, right? Like you do your wides, your over the shoulders and stuff like that, and having kind of like a weirdly like one over the shoulder angle is fine, and then the opposite over the shoulder is weird and doesn't match. Maybe it's like a different it's a little tighter than the other angle, and there's no reason why. It just is not. You didn't think about it, and it just kind of looks strange after the fact in my mind. Yeah.
No, I get that. And again, all this can be explained if it's motivated, if there's a reason for it. Like if you want somebody to be larger in the frame for a reason, to show like, dominance, or to show like, a lower angle to look up at somebody, just so that you could show that the person talking has a dominant role over the other character, that's fine. But sometimes it's like, there's just like such a weird composition change between shot, reverse shot, that it makes no sense.
And I also think that people a lot of times will try to pull that type of thing and say like, oh, it was like my artistic vision or whatever. And I think you can do that when the rest of your movie looks like a real movie, you know? And you can say, okay, yeah, like I chose to do that. That was my choice, like artistically. And like the rest of it is a solid movie. Everything makes sense compositionally. It's like lit well. And I did this thing to like, as a choice. But if everything's messed up, you can't.
It's hard to get away with saying that.
You can't then go and say like, "Oh yeah, that was my choice." Like, yeah, totally. I crossed the line on purpose because I was doing artsy things, and it's like, well, did you, or do you not know what that is? Because it doesn't seem like you know.
There's a line, right? And I can't cross it.
Like, I was watching something the other day, in fact, and I can't think of what it is. As
that's
per usual, all my days are blending together, Trevor.
I know.
It's all one day.
It's Thursday. It's Thursday, the 32nd.
But I was watching something where it was two girls like looking at each other, laying down, and they cut back and forth, and in the edit, on screen, they were in the exact same spot when the cuts were made. So like they didn't switch, so it didn't look like they were looking at each other. It looked like it was cutting, and the second person was in the same exact position. Like it was hard to
like the background was the same.
No, but just like, you know how when you do cuts to people talking to each other, they're usually facing off the opposite direction, so it looks like they're looking at each other.
Yeah, one looks screen left, one looks screen right, that kind of thing.
Yes, and in this case, both were looking screen right, and both were framed the exact same. So, I know what it was. It was Hana, the movie.
Really?
Yeah, great movie. Love that movie. And so
that
to me was one of those instances where I was like, oh, he chose to do that because everything else is great. And I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that.
Yeah, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but that's an easy, like, if it's coming to that, just flip it in post. Like,
I know. It was strange. I'm not gonna lie.
And they do that a lot. You'll notice that like birthmarks will move on people and be on the other side because you'll see that they screwed up and they flip it. But like, I give them the benefit of the doubt because that movie's great. So that's just weird. I guess I never noticed that.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed it either. But on rewatching it, we saw that in the theater when it came out, and I think I didn't realize how many strange things he did, camera wise, editing wise. He did a lot of strange stuff in that movie, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, he knew the rules in order to break them.
And decided to break. Yep, exactly. So on to the next thing, color. So one big thing that you'll notice a lot is strange skin tones. Everyone knows what skin looks like.
Yes.
And yet, like, when they do odd, weird lighting, which is fine, the skin tones get really weird. But in like big movies, and I say like Only God Forgives, where the neons of Winfred was like crazy. The skin tones weren't crazy; they were accurate to like what the neon that was lighting him.
And I think what happens too is in movies, in like real movies where they do that, and it is like a full on color. And the skin is like, they only do that for a little bit because it's hard to watch, I think. And so they'll come in and out of that type of situation where they'll be walking through lights and their whole face will become red or whatever. Or it'll be for like a short part of the scene, or the light will be sort of like moving and like doing some type of like pulse. I don't know. But I think it's pretty rare that a filmmaker will just completely lose all of a character's skin tone for an entire scene because it's supposedly like under some type of light. Usually what will happen is you'll light the actor with, I don't know, like a tungsten light or whatever on their face, get the skin tone, and then the strange light, whatever the color is, blue or whatever, will be on one side of their face. So you get the sense that they're under that light, and or maybe it'll be backlighting them or whatever. Yeah. So you have the motivation of that color and it's hitting them and you're able to use it on their skin, but it's not taking over their skin so that they look sick or I don't know, out of place, like they're underwater or something. If the whole scene is blue and you have no color, like tonality differences between things.
Which goes back to our lighting about contrast. Like if you don't have the contrast, it just looks weird. And the contrast and lighting of like, if the whole thing is blue for a long time, it's going to look like a mistake
it is. And I think it also seems fake, right? It doesn't seem like lighting anymore. It seems like you just took a blue and like overlaid it on top of an image, like in post. It doesn't look like a choice. It doesn't look like a real scenario, like a real scene or like a real location or something. It just looks weird.
Yeah. And maybe that works in certain movies, but for the most part, it just looks lazy and like they're trying to be different for no real reason.
Yes. Yeah.
And then this is, I think, come out of the DSLR age is the oversaturated reds and magentas.
Yeah, particularly in skin tones, I think. Skin tones are hard to nail. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it can be difficult, especially, I mean, those early Blackmagic cameras had like a real weird magenta. And it was hard to get rid of. And it made everything look strange.
I think Canon still have their magenta.
Canon does lean magenta as well. And so getting that out, other cameras lean green. I mean, and it also is strange if it's left in. I know Red's kind of lean green and Panasonic does too a little bit, but I think you got to be able to take whatever you have in camera and normalize it. And most of the time I think that's possible and not that difficult, but for some reason, I don't know why, every time I had to deal with those early Blackmagic cameras, it was really hard. Oh, and also the Osmos. I mean, ours ours was like messed up. I don't know what happened. I think we got like a faulty one, but like it was impossible to color that thing.
That thing was, and if you didn't color it in camera, you were screwed. Like coloring it in post, absolutely screwed. If you didn't put those presets on it, that Osmo was a POS.
Garbage.
So on to the next thing, sound. Yep. Sound's a big thing that it's tough. Sound is a tough thing. Like sound is one of those things that we said, if you have the money, like the first thing you should get is a sound guy on set. Like it's just, it's so like important for the overall sound of the film, for the look of the film, I was going to say, but the overall quality of the film is the sound. Bad audio could be, kill you. And it's just, no room tone, or you're trying to run audio at the same time and it just was like really shitty. Bad audio can really ruin a movie. Totally. And you see it a lot where they have bad audio and then they go to try and do clean audio and it doesn't match. So you get your voice over your ADR recordings, and it's like this really gritty raw audio, and then all of a sudden it comes really clean, and it may match the actors' lips on screen, but it sounds so crisp compared to everything else. It's so startling. Different that you're like, okay, like come on, like you got to still. Like if you're going to go with the most of the movie being with this kind of audio, then you got to match your voice over your ADR to that, so it doesn't stand out so much.
I agree. And it is, a lot of these things are things that you might think like no one will notice that, like the average person. But I do think for the most part with these types of things, people even not in the film industry, not aware of different techniques, there's like an uncanniness to it. That it's just strange, or it seems odd or out of place or whatever, and it just, even if they can't quite put their finger on it, that's why I think there really is sort of like an indie audio sound. It's and I can't, at least I'm sure like an audio professional could explain it perfectly, like what is going on that makes this sound so weird compared to professional things. But for people that aren't sound professionals, they still know it's weird, but they can't quite put their finger on it.
They can't give the technical term, but they're just like, that's kind of off.
Yeah. And I do think for me, especially like the ADR, when it's super clean, but then also it sounds not just clean, but like fuller. It has like this richness to it that and you're like what is happening?
The bass or treble is not matching, and all of a sudden the person's like 2 words in the sentence are bassier than the rest of the sentence. Yes. It's like, whoa.
And for some reason, even if it's spot on with his mouth, his lips, having that extra like richness when it shouldn't be makes it seem like it's not quite on.
Yeah, exactly. I was actually watching a video because we were having some technical difficulties with this, and this guy, and he did it on purpose. He was doing like, okay, so now I'm doing the microphone through my computer and I'm about to switch it to the mixer, and all of a sudden, boom, he switched to the mixer and it sounded rich, robust, and full. And I was like, okay, he's dubbing this because it just completely changed and it doesn't match it. There's no way it matches. It did. It was fine, but he was just showing how the quality was different with a mixer. And that switch mid-sentence was like, wait a second, that's not real. You're fake. You recorded this.
I think also in that same way, Foley in indie movies, if it's not mixed properly, can be really distracting. And it also has that, like, it's way too hot a lot of times, but also it does have that same sort of like crispness. And like this was recorded in a professional studio, whereas everything else was recorded out on a location. And so it has like such a different quality to it. And when it's mixed, so it doesn't like blend really well, it's just kind of like separate and you can really hear it. It sounds strange. You get a lot of the footsteps. One that always comes to mind is Rian Johnson's Brick movie. There's a lot of weird footsteps in that movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt running around in his penny loafers, and it's just like it sounds like he's tap dancing while he's running around.
The infamous Joseph Gordon-Levitt, cousin of John Lovitz.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, and that just comes down to the master mix. Like once you get your movie done, again, and some of this stuff costs money, and that's just it sucks. But to get a master mix where the levels of everything are good and the quality is good and your Foley is good, that really shows if you don't, take the time to put in the care and effort with your master mix at the end of the movie. You want to make sure everything's correct. Your leaves rustling in the background aren't too loud, or like you said, your footsteps aren't completely off from what the person is.
Oh yeah. And audio, I think, is one of those things that's going to be the quickest thing to get you in trouble when it comes to distribution.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And talking about Foley, sometimes like the sound effects are mismatched. Like maybe the feet don't match up with the walking, or you have background chatter that's a little too clear or a little too loud, or totally. Like the cell door closing isn't exactly on point. It's like, guys, you can see it and you can easily match it in post. Yeah. Like if the sound effects don't match, then you're screwed. It's just going to take everyone out of it. If that door closes a second before the sound closes, like a millisecond before the sound of the door closes, you're done. You're screwed.
You're done. Totally. And also, I think it's easier than you would think for at least someone who's aware. I don't know about non-filmy people, but to notice what sounds like a stock effect, Yes. If it's like someone swinging a punch and you have this type of thing, and it just like is an effect. It's like a sound that comes on and stops, and it's like a 2-second sort of like effect, and you just lay that in. It just sounds weird. I don't know. You can sense these sort of like stock sounds sometimes.
Yeah. We saw one that had I saw one that had a jail cell door closing, and it was like the heavy door. It's like that, and it was not a heavy door. It was, and I'm going to add this to it, is like, this goes to actors, and like, if you're going to have the heavy door sound, have the actor act like the door is heavy. Like sometimes actors are just like, because you're using a set, and maybe we'll go on to this next in terms of production design, but like you got these sound effects of this loud, heavy door, and it's just a light door, or like this.
Yeah. And I think that
it's
comes
like
down to the director. The director knowing that he wants it to be like a big, heavy door on the day, and directing the actor to do that, because a lot of times, props and sets, they don't have the same feeling or like weight or whatever, so you got to direct that. Or it's also on the guy who's doing your master mix and doing your Foley and your sound effects. It's also up to them to know that this door doesn't look heavy, so don't get a heavy sound effect, especially if it's a stock audio like you're saying. But like it's this big, heavy, like penitentiary door, and it was just this small little like county jail door that they closed, and I was like, okay, that's not the same thing. Right. Come on. And so watch out for the sound effects. Rustling bags. It doesn't have to be that loud. Like, just watch your levels on sound effects. Another one is that I've noticed a lot are when the characters are wearing like a tracksuit, and it has that sort of like zit, 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 when they're walking or whatever, and that sort of like vinyl nylon-y sound. And that's just way over. And sometimes it's great because it's comedic or whatever, and the characters.
You can get a lot more away with audio and comedic things because it's like to emphasize the comedy. But like on the Royal Tenenbaums, they all wore tracksuits, and they talked about that. Or that episode of Seinfeld where the suit was supposed to like brush and make those noises when he was walking. But for the most part, just put it so low in the background. Oh, you don't even you don't really need it. Like if you need some sound, put it low.
Yeah, it's got to just be mixed by a real deal professional. Because let's be honest,
that's something that we would put all of our money into, would be a sound professional if we were doing a short. And finally, production design and locations.
Yeah, I mean this is a tough one, because when you're talking about no budget films, low budget films, you oftentimes are using what you have, which is great. And you should definitely do that. But there's, I think a lot of times you feel like there's nothing you can do about it. Like you have this room that's just all white walls, and there's like nothing going on. But you can do things about it. It's going to take effort and money, a little bit of money. But one thing you could do in that example is temporarily put up wallpaper You know, just with like a little sticky tack, gummy adhesive, like removable stuff. So that it stays up. You have like a texture on the wall. It's not just white, but you can easily remove it. You're not damaging your friend's house or whatever that you're using.
Not even freaking wallpaper. Put some pictures up. Hang some pictures with like those 3M like no mark like hanging things. Like just hang some stuff in the background instead of just using what you got. I mean, like you can go to Goodwill and get pictures for like $1, and it doesn't matter what's in it. Just but like the lack thereof would be bad. And on to like, you know, cheap locations is just like, you know, like making a bedroom into like a kitchen just because that's all you have or something like that. You know, it's like people try and futz it as much as they can, and I applaud that. But there comes a point where it's going to be completely obvious that whatever you are trying to make, it just doesn't look like that.
And also, I think with that, when it comes to big budget movies, everything is thought through, right?
Yeah.
So you have a location. Even like if that location is great sort of architecturally, but it doesn't fit with the color palette, the art department will come in and they'll like paint, or they'll really put up wallpaper, or they'll do whatever it takes to get that location to follow the aesthetic of the movie, the design. And you can't do that. And a lot of times, I would say indie filmmakers, amateur filmmakers don't think about it in that way as a tool that can be used and altered to fit their movie. They think about it as an asset that they have and they have to use it as is. But I think, you know, if you're able to, you know, add a rug, add wallpaper, like we said, or like add some type of light fixture, you know, chandelier, whatever. It's like try to make it fit within the movie rather than just being something that works because it's all you have.
Yeah. Find locations where it has things that you can't change. Like you said, the architectural design of it, and then change everything else that you can, like that you can have control over, to make it fit. And then also bad props. People will make their own props, and they just look really, really shitty. I mean, if you didn't know that, what was it? The lightsabers were made from old handles of the flashbulb cameras, where the photographers would hold them and the flash bulb would go off. That was what lightsabers were made of. And I remember there's another famous one where it's like a little robot is made from a garbage can or something like that.
Right.
And they made it work. And you didn't even know. But other people will try and make their own props, and they'll look so horrible. They'll look really bad.
Yeah, and I think it has a lot to do with this idea that, yes, the lightsaber props were made from an existing piece of a handle, but they were then machined by a professional using like real machining tools and to a level of precision that like you trying to do in your garage, you may not be able to do. You may be able to do it if you have that the tools and the talent and the skills to do that. But there is sort of a level of, especially when you're dealing with industrial sort of like fabricated things, like it's hard to get a certain level of smoothness if something's supposed to be like fiberglass, you know?
Yeah.
How do you get that smoothness from something that you've made out of wood, or you know, just like that type of stuff, and also knowing how to paint things to get the look you want, like having metallic paint that actually looks like metal rather than just like a silver paint that you put on something, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know, all that kind of, all those little details really really stand out. And
yeah, but it's so funny that we talk about that, but then you know that the Michael Myers mask was just a William Shatner mask that they painted white, and it's like, but that worked. Like it works for that. So there are ways you could do it cheaply. You just have to make sure that you're doing it right and it's all working out. Because if you do it cheaply, but you can tell it's cheap, then you're just doing a disservice to your movie.
Totally. And I also, going back to production design for a sec, I think one thing that really stands out to me a lot is when locations look like model homes.
Yeah.
You know, I think that happens a lot in things like Lifetime movies or
oh god, yes,
or even, you know, low budget movies, because what they've done is they've rented a place and it looks like a model home because, or like a hotel or something, because the person that owns it keeps it nice for people to stay in. It's not meant to look good on camera or like look lived in. It's definitely not supposed to look lived in because you're renting it to like stay there or whatever.
Exactly.
And so it just has this kind of like sterile or like model home vibe where it's like no one's ever slept in that bed. You know, like these are brand new sheets that you like pulled. You can see like the folds in it from when you just like unfolded it to put it on the bed. You know, like you just bought that at Target. Like that type of stuff. You know, not
really
making
shows up
things
on
look
camera.
lived in. It's also the same with wardrobe, you know?
Yes, like new
wardrobe
clean
people,
clothes.
Yeah, they do a lot of cool stuff to make things look, you know, like you've owned them for a while. You know, putting like sweat stains in things or having
I can help them in that department.
I know I could too. Man. We should start doing that. Offering our services for movies.
Yeah. We will give you sweat stains and all the clothes that you need for your movies.
We'll also stretch them out for you.
But they also like they kind of wear down like hats and they wear down like clothes so it's fraying a little bit to show that it's been lived, like you said, it's been worn, it's been used.
Yeah, and shoes, you know, they'll literally they'll put shoes out in the sun and they'll fold them and crease them because you know there's nothing worse than having like a brand new pair of shoes. And it looking like they're brand new in your movie.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. So I think that's about it. Anything else you want to add? As we just bashed every film out there that's done cheaply.
I know. Well, the thing is, it's like, in my mind, to sum it up.
Yeah.
Like we said, most of these things come down to motivation. Even when you're talking about the wardrobe looking worn, you have to think about the reality of the scenario. Like, is the light motivated? Is it motivated for this person to be wearing brand new clothes that you just bought?
Yeah.
Is it motivated for this prop to be brand new because you just bought it? You know, et cetera. Like all these things, it all pretty much comes down to motivation at the end of the day. Yeah. And so I think if you can try to keep everything motivated and try to think about in the prep of your movie what the quality of these things are supposed to be. If you're talking about props with a person on your set, or if you're going out and buying it, like just thinking about how you're going to age it, wear it down to whatever level it's supposed to be at. You know, you don't have to like, not everything needs to be from like a Western town, like covered in dust or anything, but I'm just saying like, it doesn't need to look brand new.
Exactly.
A little scuffed up or whatever will go a long way. And just having a little bit more care in those things that may seem like minutia at the end of the day, like while you're in it, but afterwards, I think all add up to make a huge impact.
Absolutely, and we're not trying to bash films. We're just trying to give you forewarnings of the pitfalls that a lot of these cheap films, not cheap, but low budget films make. And if you can avoid them, your film will just have a higher production value and look better, and could possibly, you know, have a better chance of being sold if you did it independently, or you know, rented, or video on demand, or just well received to get you that next job.
Yeah,
whatever you're trying to do with it. It's just, this is advice, and like, learn from the mistakes of others, and hopefully those people who've made those mistakes in the past hear this and don't make those same mistakes twice. We've all made those mistakes. Me and Alex have done it.
Absolutely.
We're not saying that we're not guilty of some of these. We are, but we just try and take the time to make sure that we don't make them again on every project moving forward, and then each project looks better and better.
Exactly, and I think it's also important for people to not get so hung up on their own stuff, to think that their shit don't stink, you know?
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
Every time we make something, we try to look back at it and learn something from it, because there's no way we made something perfectly ever, right?
Exactly.
So like we look at it, and yes, we are probably our harshest critics. Actually, I don't know. Funbot might be our harshest critic, but
Funbot, you're leading the pack there, buddy.
but we like to look at the things that we make and say, okay, if I had to do that over again, I would have done this. I would have done this. I would have done this. And then the next time we go out on a shoot, we have all those things in the back of our mind, and we say, okay, we need it. Like last time we did this, and it sort of messed us up a little bit. And now we're going to adjust and try to, make it better this time. And I think that's a healthy thing to do. And again, we don't mean to like bash, I hope nobody feels attacked, #triggered or whatever. But
snowflakes.
I think we're all guilty of it in one way or another. And we just need to look at our own stuff and with like honest eyes and say, how can we make this better? And that's really the only way to continue to grow.
Exactly. And so just take these to heart and remember the next time. Remember, if one of these things is in the back of your mind and you don't do it, that's just a step in the right direction and growing as a filmmaker and getting closer and closer to making that perfect film that you think is the best you've made yet.
Exactly. All right.
I
think that's going to do it for this episode.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. You can get the show notes for this episode by visiting nobudgetfilmmaking.com.
And don't forget to head on over to iTunes and subscribe to our podcast. And while you're there, give us a 5-star rating if you want to hear more of this stuff.
Yeah, that 0.8 that you're missing from that Stella really screwed you over.
Oh my God.
If you have any filmmaking questions, ask away in the comments section and we will try to answer them.
Also, if you're in the giving mood, head on over to nobudgetfilmmaking.com/beer and buy us more beer because we clearly need it. Also,
obviously,
we'll give you a shout out in the next episode if you do so.
Also, and don't forget to head over to fearlessfilmmakers.com to join our growing community of filmmakers, and we will catch you guys next time.
Later.
Peace.